The Selma to Montgomery March was a culmination of the long struggle for voting rights, which triggered a national outcry.
Even after the Civil Rights Act of 1964, African Americans were still not allowed to vote. People's efforts to register black voters had massive resistance in southern states, especially Alabama.
In early 1965, Martin Luther King Jr.'s Southern Christian Leadership Conference made Selma, Alabama the focus of its efforts to register black voters in the South. In spite of repeated registration attempts by local blacks, only 3% were registered to vote.
On February 18th, white segregationists attacked a group of peaceful demonstrators protesting for voting rights. Amongst the chaos, an Alabama state trooper fatally shot Jimmy Lee Lewis, a 26-year-old church deacon. He passed 8 days later in a Selma hospital.
SCLC chose to focus their efforts in Selma because the brutality of local law enforcement would attract national attention and pressure President Johnson to enact a new voting rights legislation.
In response to Jackson's death, Martin Luther King, Hosea Williams, and John Lewis led the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee in the Southern Christian Leadership Conference, as well as thousands of nonviolent demonstrators on a 5-day, 50-mile march from Selma to the state capitol in Montgomery in order to peacefully achieve voting rights for African Americans.
On March 7th, civil rights marchers headed east out of Selma and got as far as the Edmund Pettus Bridge, where they faced a blockade of state and local lawmen. When marchers did not disperse, the troopers attacked the crowd with clubs and tear gas. This Sunday became known as Bloody Sunday.
Television coverage of Bloody Sunday triggered national outrage. The images sickened, outraged, and electrified people throughout the country. Within 48 hours, demonstrations in support of the marchers were held in 80 cities.
2 days later, King led a symbolic march to the Edmund Pettus Bridge. President Johnson pressured King to call off the march until a federal court order could provide protection to the marchers. However, the march went on. Once the marchers arrived to the site of Sunday's attack, they kneeled and prayed before marching back to obey Johnson's federal order.
That night, violence led by white segregationists ended the life of James Reeb. Reeb's death further angered protesters and drew more attention for the need for a change.
Things began to change the afternoon of March 15th. President Lyndon B. Johnson voiced his support and identified himself with the marchers during a televised public statement to Congress.
For the final march, civil rights leaders sought protection for a full-scale march from Selma to the state capitol. On March 21st, thousands of soldiers, National Guard members, and FBI agents protected the marchers who made their way to Montgomery under federal command.
By March 25th, the marchers had reached the Capitol. Marchers gathered in front of the state capitol as King and other speakers gathered on the steps of the Capitol and spoke. King proclaimed, "The end we seek is a society at peace with itself, a society that can live with its conscience. And that will be a day not of the white man, not of the black man. That will be the day of man as man."
That August, Congress passed the Voting Rights Act, which guaranteed the right to vote to all African Americans. Millions of blacks who had been denied the right to vote for nearly a century had finally won a federal guarantee to exercise their right to vote. Thousands of marchers never gave up until they reached success. Selma showed the world the dedication and perseverance displayed within the marchers, which inspired others to join the movement for equal rights.
Today we remember not only the atrocities that occurred, but also the events marked by grace. The brave actions of the marchers serve as a reminder to the American people to fight for justice and equality. The Selma to Montgomery March has taught us that a united group fighting for one cause can lead to a lasting change in the world.